I wouldn't be shocked. And then I guess one other thing I wanted to bring up was like, some Raiders free agents. There's one in particular that I was looking at that interests me, and that's Clellin Ferrell, because he was picked right after Bosa, obviously a bust based on his draft position. But, I've heard he started to play a little bit better recently, and he just seems like a perfect reclamation project candidate for Kris Kocurek, where he takes these guys who were drafted high for whatever reason, they didn't quite work out. They work with Kocurek on our D line, and all of a sudden, like Arden Key last year was a great example, also a former Raider. And so I've just been saying I think that might be somebody the Niners might go after. I still think we need that quintessential speed rush defensive end, the D Ford replacement, if you will. But I would love to get Clellin Ferrell in there on that rotation, because we got a lot of rotational guys that may not come back with Hyder, Amenahu, Ebicom, Willis. So there's at least 4 defensive ends that we may lose in free agency.
Well, I can't speak as an expert, and I'm not an expert on anything, but in terms of Ferrell's career, because we have just not done a lot of Raider games. But I do know this, he's played special teams for them, and apparently done so without making a big fuss. When you're a top 5 pick and you find yourself playing the majority of special teams, a lot of guys would lose their minds and really not even show up for work. So he appears to have a great approach to the game. And this is not a great correlation, Ted, and it just comes to mind as you were speaking there. Trey Hendrickson was a very good pass rusher in New Orleans. He goes opposite Cam Jordan, but he signs with Cincinnati, and he's now working under Lou Anarumo, who's an outstanding defensive coordinator. And now and again, it's not a correlation to Ferrell, but he's the dominant player on that D line. He gets a change of scenery, gets a new contract, a fresh approach. He's the man. So Ferrell would clearly, if he were to come to the 49ers, would not be the man, but he would be a role player. But you give guys a change of scenery, a new contract, a new lease on life, with incentives, and you get around a different vibe. And I'm not saying the Raiders can't capture the 49ers vibe, but they're a year away from having that feeling. That's what Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels are trying to do, this literally reboot the franchise, get them organized. That's the one thing I thought and still think McDaniels will bring to the Raiders is a sense of organization and structure that's like, mistake-proof in a way. The Raiders, even in their heyday in the 70s and 80s, were leading the league in penalties. I think they're going to play cleaner football, better football going forward. And so even if a guy like Clellin Ferrell is not a part of it, he's the kind of guy you want on your team who will do a lot of the dirty work and get better with better coaching and better talent around him. So we'll see how that pans out.
I love that. Sounds like he's got a good attitude and would probably be a good culture fit. And that's so huge for the 49ers. Don't ever want to see any bad apples brought in, no matter how talented they are. One last thing, Tommy, I'd love to get your opinion on. I don't know if you saw